Hey guys, what is up? So I know that you missed us last week, but that's because we were both sick and lazy. But we are back with video number 3. Technically we were unpacking number 4, but we are going to talk about how the U.S. becomes a world power / World War Uno.
So, okay. Wait, what? What is going on? Okay, Section 1, the road to war. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was the name for Europe, Germany, and Austria-Hungary because of the location it was in. Also, the Triple Entente was the name for France, Britain, and Russia during the World War I. And also, they were part of the Allied powers, which was that.
Allied.
There
were more countries. We're gonna get to the rest of them later, but these are just the main that they included for now, because then Russia obviously leaves because communism and stuff. But anyways, the World War I is the war that we're talking about. It obviously started in 1914 and it officially ended in 1918. And this was actually won by the Allied powers. Whoa!
Yay.
After the U.S. joined the conflict in 1917. So we were late on the party because, we wanted to stay neutral, but that's okay because,
Some causes of the World War were the European alliance system, the rise of militarism, the rise of economic rivals among European power, and nationalistic feelings.
Yay, America! I mean, not America. It's not. Yum. Anyways, U.S. getting in the war. So the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. So his name is Archduke Franz Ferdinand, to be very specific. He was the Duke.
He's also named Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. He was the spark that started World War I. And
so the U.S. joined the war because of the U-boat attacks by Germany. The Sussex Pledge was Germany's promise to stop attacking other people's boats
in
enemy waters.
They didn't.
And the sinking of Lusitania was it was a British cruise ship, and the Zimmerman Pledge, and that was the German message to Mexico to give parts of Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona if they could fight on the German side.
And this is a big deal because what actually happened, this was a letter that Germany sent to Mexico and was like, hey, dude, if you start a war with US, you can get all of the land that U.S. took from you back, but it actually got intercepted and it was made public, which is another reason why we wanted to go to war. But it's not only because of this. There's a main reasoning behind it a little bit later, but it was kind of a conglomeration of all of this stuff. And then President Woodrow Wilson wanted to be neutral in the beginning, and that's what led to his re-election, because he's like, I kept y'all out of war, but we ended up going into war. So
okay, U.S. not wanting to be with the Allied powers. The Irish Americans didn't really like Britain,
The U.S. was all buddy-buddy with Britain because they were forgetting about, the time that, the American Revolution, where we were owned by them, and there's monarchy, and, they kind of killed a bunch of people. But, whatever. Anyways, and then German immigrants also did not want to go to war because obviously they didn't want to go to war against some other country. And then financial growth that helped big companies. They didn't want to have to deal with the financial stand back. And it also was going to prevent being progressive, and a bunch of progressives did not want to go to war because they felt it would interfere with their social reforms.
Section 2, war on the home front. A total war is a war that affects all the citizens and the countries involved and uses all the resources that those countries have. World War I was the first war that the U.S. had people fighting on the front lines and the home front, which is where the citizens are, right?
Yeah, that's where the citizens are.
Yeah, and the powers that the government took to get people to fight in the war or do stuff in the war, whereas they had a draft to bring soldiers, they rationed food and vital raw materials, regulated import and exports, and they took over transportation companies and industries.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then the actual people fighting in the war, so this is just a quick definition, but although many men volunteered to fight in the war, most leaders believed that the nation would have to turn to conscription, which is obviously the forced military service. So that also led to the draft. And African Americans' role in fighting the war, there was discrimination / prejudice against them. And so they were in segregated units, which means that they were not allowed to serve with the white people, and then they were almost always under command of white officers. So even though they were allowed to fight in the war, they were still being treated differently.
Yeah, and this was the first war where African Americans and women actually had a vital role in fighting in the war. Women were mostly part of the armed forces, nurses, and Navy. Other things that the government did. The War Industries Bond, a government agency that converted factories from producing goods to producing war materials, and they also coordinate the production of said war materials.
Yeah.
Daylight saving time. It was a plan to save energy. So the Americans would have to set their clock like an hour forward so that they could have another hour of sunlight.
So more sleep.
Yeah. Or less sleep. And that.
No, more sleep. Daylight saving time is when you... Wait, is it? I don't know. Comment down below your opinion.
What happened to the people in the U.S. during the war? Regular citizens would try to help out in the war effort, and so they rationed goods and they purchased war bonds and other stuff.
Victory gardens were the gardens in which the government wanted people to grow their own food, so that way they wouldn't have to be as reliant and they could provide food for the military forces.
Okay, other things that happened to the citizens of America. The Great Migration, which was the movement of African Americans from the south to the...
African Americas.
Did I actually say that?
Of African Americans.
The movement of African Americans to the north from the south so they can work in factories. This caused a lot of problems after the war because soldiers were just like, I can get a job because all these colored people
That's
are
a
taking up.
direct quote, probably. Anyway, so then this is probably... anyways, the government was trying to control the people during the war, or specifically the citizens of America, because like I said earlier, progressives didn't want to be involved in the war, but instead the government passed the Espionage Act. How do I say that? Espionage Act.
Espionage Act of 1917, which made disloyal, profane, scurrilous, or abusive language a federal offense.
So pretty much anything you said bad about the government, they could charge you for.
And the Sedition Act of 1918 was
extended the espionage.
And it made negative opinions about the war/war effort illegal.
And you may know this dude, but you remember Eugene V. Debs? He ended up being prosecuted for saying bad stuff about the government during World War I, and he was a socialist. So there's a bunch of not necessarily famous, but a bunch of progressives and socialists that ended up getting imprisoned due to the fact that they had an opinion. So that's pretty much it.
And these two acts greatly limited the freedom of the
U.S.
people.
They took away their rights for
during the war. And Schneck versus United States. And this was it a case? Supreme Court ruled that freedom of speech was bad if it presented a danger.
Moving on to Section 3, the Great War. Okay, so one person can now murder everyone at once with machine guns, so that was invented, which is a huge issue it's not only an issue, but it's also an advantage for many people. But this led to no man's lands, which were areas between trenches that were filled with mines and bombs and machine guns. So pretty much if you walked in there, you're boom, dead. Anyway, so new weapons were the machine gun.
Don't joke about death.
It's not funny. Death is not funny. Please excuse anything we're talking about in this whole entire video. Death is not funny. You can check out death. Anyways, machine guns, tanks, airplanes, hand grenades, and poison gas were all used, and this was all used.
An improved invention.
Anyways, moving on.
Wow! Okay, significant things that happened during the war. Russia withdrew from the war, which means that they just left it.
And that's the triggering point to when U.S. entered the war on the Ally side.
And the Doughboys.
The boy.
Okay. And this was the name for American soldiers in Europe. John J. or Blackjack Pershing.
He was the commander of the U.S. Army in Europe. And I don't know why it says was Pershing, just ignore that.
Convoys. They were ships that were filled with goods and protected by warships.
So then one of the key battles of the whole entire war was the Battle of Argonne Forest, because Germany's defenses were massively weakened, and that's
Armistice agreement was the agreement that ended all the fighting in World War I, and it happened on 11 a.m. November 11th, 1918, which was
11.
Okay, and the Treaty of Versailles, and it was the treaty that officially ended the war in 1919.
Okay,
What is
so
this?
is 14, 14, 14, 14, 14. This is a big thing that you need to know. So this is the 14-point plan. The 14-point plan was a plan to keep peace after the war, and it was made by Woodrow Wilson. And then this also included in the plan was the League of Nations, and which was a peacekeeping organization that was made by one of Woodrow Wilson's points, and it was adopted into the Treaty of Versailles. And then, so isolationism was an idea amongst the 14-point plan. It wasn't in the 14-point plan, but it was an idea that came out of it. And this was the idea that the U.S. shouldn't be involved in foreign affairs at all because, like, you know, if they stay out of it, then, like, they don't have anything to do with it. And they don't really want to join the League of Nations because they don't want to be in a war or whatever.
Which is kind of weird because, like, Woodrow Wilson, like, made
it, but, like, you know.
But, like, people didn't want to.
So, like, they didn't. And then, like, a negative effect was Germany was forced to pay $30 billion.
Okay, section 4, war impact. Things that happened in the war. The German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires all collapsed. And the boundaries of the countries were redrawn, and there are a lot of financial issues.
You know, that's a lot of U-boats.
and war costs a lot of money.
And American problems after this included the cost of living because it was raised. There was economic problems and the fear of communism, which led to a lot of stuff because, you know, now people were paranoid. So then,
because communism wasn't a very good thing.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so the economy, now workers and labor unions increased post-war because a bunch of people were joining labor unions. And
because they didn't like the country.
Yeah. And as we talked about earlier, soldiers needed jobs, but the African Americans during the Great Migration had also migrated for jobs. So now it's like, like people and people and people and people and like people.
And this like made a lot of like racial tension. General strike, a strike that involves all the workers in a certain location and not just a certain industry.
And then there was the Red Scare, which strikes erupted, causing the fear of communism. So this was the feeling that like strikes erupted across the United States in 1919, and this is pretty much, just the fear of communists, or Reds, as some people refer to them. They were afraid that they might seize power, and this led to a nationwide panic known as the Red Scare.
And this also led to calls to limit immigration.
Because, you know, they figured, like, you know, we might as well, like, limit the immigration.
Yeah, you know, because, like, communists and immigrants are, like, the exact same thing.
Yeah,
you know?
relatable.
Okay.
Hashtag freedom or nah. So I don't know why I titled it that, but anyways, due to the strikes, Americans associated communism with being unpatriotic or disloyal, which led to the General Intelligence Division being created, because this was a special division underneath the government to deal with government secrets, and it was headed by J. Edgar Hoover. And
Edgar Hoover.
Yeah.
Palmer raids, a series of raids that, because of the skepticism of communism, the Palmer raids had no concern for people's civil liberties, and they were just like
they were searching. They were trying to
like,
find any scrap of communism to exist.
Yeah, so they can like punish.
And
people.
our final point is that the election of Warren G. Harding in 1920 led to an end of progressivism.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's like
so
really
like
cool.
Rest in peace, like, you know, progressivism and like, you know, lives because we're.
This is the end of our video.
Stay tuned till next week's video and try to stay out of any wars. And please excuse any rude humor, as we know the wars are not jokes and neither is death or communism. So anyways, bye.
Okay.